In October 1944, Feldwebel Wilhelm Kuntz, 32, a Luftwaffe NCO, became prisoner 304,857 after his Messerschmitt was downed over Normandy. Captured by American infantry, his war ended on June 12, 1944. His Iron Cross and service pistol were confiscated, but the anticipated brutality was replaced by efficient processing at a field interrogation centre. His 17-day Atlantic crossing on a Liberty ship with 200 other German soldiers challenged Wilhelm's preconceptions. Daily rations of white bread, canned meat and real coffee surpassed his recent Luftwaffe provisions. Guards were dispassionate, occasionally offering cigarettes, not the savage treatment propaganda had foretold. When Gefreiter Hans Becker contracted dysentery, American medics provided actual medicine and isolation, further perplexing Wilhelm. The 3-day train journey to Mississippi unveiled an America untouched by war. Lush farmland, abundant cattle, brightly lit towns, and children on bicycles contrasted sharply with his bombed, rationed homeland. Factories operated at full capacity, their output fueling the destruction of Germany. In Tennessee, curious locals waved at the German prisoners, an elderly woman even offering homemade apple pie, treating them as visitors, not enemies. Arriving at Camp Como on October 14th, Wilhelm braced for harsh imprisonment. Instead, he found a 500-acre camp with standard barbed-wire fencing and relaxed guard towers. Barracks were sturdy wooden structures with screened windows, not concrete cells. The processing station, smelling of fresh paint, requested details on work skills and education in German. An American sergeant, speaking basic German, explained Geneva Convention rights. Wilhelm received 2 sets of clothes, essentials including real soap and bunk linens, all distributed from organised shelves, resembling provisions for employees rather than prisoners. The camp canteen, resembling a small restaurant, astonished Wilhelm on his second day. The aroma of fresh coffee, bacon and sweets filled the air. The serving line offered scrambled eggs, bacon, toast, fried potatoes, unfamiliar cereals, orange juice, and steaming coffee. Wilhelm mechanically took his tray, convinced this was a temporary propaganda exercise. Yet meal after meal brought similar abundance. Beef stew, fresh vegetables, and most incredibly pie. This stood in stark contrast to his son Dieter in Stuttgart, who had subsisted on turnip soup and black bread. His body thin and hair thinning from malnutrition, as Greta's last letter had described. Wilhelm's barracks assignment in Building 7, with 43 other Luftwaffe prisoners, featured individual bunks, electric heaters for the October chill, and constantly functioning lights. The attached washroom offered 8 flush toilets, 6 sinks with running water, and 4 shower stalls with hot water twice daily. Standing in his first hot shower for 20 minutes, Wilhelm struggled to reconcile this luxury with the propaganda's promises of torture and starvation. Enemy prisoners had better facilities than German civilians. On October 17th, his 4th day, Wilhelm joined his first work detail, clearing land for a new recreational field. The tool shed provided functional shovels, rakes, pickaxes and wheelbarrows. No chains, no armed escorts. 2 older American guards, more like civilian foremen, supervised from the shade, sipping Coca-Cola. When Wilhelm's shovel broke, a guard simply issued another. Working under the intense Mississippi sun, Wilhelm found a rhythm in the physical labour, a welcome change from combat and captivity. Mid-morning, 3 American women, accompanied by 2 healthy children, approached the perimeter fence from the civilian housing area. They carried baskets and paper bags freely and without escort. The children, a 10-year-old girl and a boy Dieter's age, raced ahead, laughing, to peer through the chain link at the German prisoners. Wilhelm paused, observing the women, one in a new yellow dress, the others in casual slacks and blouses. Their styled hair and healthy appearance spoke of abundance. The children were impossibly healthy. The boy's cheeks plump, clothing clean and new, shoes well fitted and not patched. The woman in yellow called out in accented German, "Guten Tag, would you like candy?" Shaking a paper bag, its contents rattling, she drew the attention of the American guard, who simply waved back. No alarm, no intervention. This casual generosity towards men who months earlier had been trying to kill American soldiers stunned Wilhelm and the other prisoners. Hans Becker, recovered from dysentery, walked to the fence. "Why?" he asked in German. The woman smiled, speaking English as the boy translated. "Mama says you're far from home. She says you must miss your families. She made cookies. We brought comics too, if you can read English." Wilhelm's knees weakened. This American child, unafraid and well-fed, offered cookies and comics with a kindness Dieter might show visiting relatives. The boy's leather shoes were new, his shirt featured an unfamiliar cartoon, and his face was round, healthy, and full of resilient childhood energy, a stark contrast to Dieter's last photograph, showing hollow eyes and thin limbs outside their partially destroyed Stuttgart apartment. The woman passed wrapped chocolate bars, candy, and comic books, featuring heroes like Superman, through the fence to Hans. He distributed them, each man handling the items like sacred relics. Wilhelm received a Hershey bar and a Superman comic. The chocolate was solid, real, unlike the ersatz product Germany had used for years. The women stayed for 15 minutes, engaging in broken German conversation, asking about hometowns and families with genuine curiosity. The fearless children pressed close, fascinated. The little girl asked if Wilhelm had children. He replied, "One son, Dieter, in Stuttgart." She wished Dieter safe and hoped the war would end soon. An 8-year-old American girl expressing genuine hope for German civilians, while American bombers obliterated German cities nightly, was incomprehensible to Wilhelm. His propaganda-fueled image of materialistic, weak Americans, corrupted by capitalism, shattered. Instead, he saw abundantly provisioned women and children, offering kindness that transcended ideology. As the women left, Wilhelm returned to work in silence, as did the other prisoners, processing the encounter. The American guard chuckled. "Happens all the time. Folks around here are hospitable. Church ladies organize donations every week. You boys are getting better treatment than some of our own soldiers in the field, but regulations say we have to treat you right, so we do. Geneva Convention and all that." That night, Wilhelm lay on his bunk, unable to eat his Hershey bar. Electric lights illuminated the compound, a stark contrast to Germany's blackouts. Music drifted from the recreation hall, where prisoners could enjoy movies, library books, and sports. The German-printed camp newspaper reported accurate war news, not propaganda. His stomach was full, his body clean, his uniform mended. American guards treated him with distant professionalism, efficient but not cruel. Dieter was starving in Stuttgart. Greta was sacrificing cooking pots for metal quotas as bombs fell. German children were conscripted into the Volkssturm, civilians huddled in basements for survival. Yet here, in the enemy heartland, prisoners ate better than Wehrmacht officers, received superior medical care, and were offered cookies by children who had never known hunger. Wilhelm turned the Hershey bar in his hands. Everything he'd been taught about America, its weakness, degeneracy, impending collapse, pulverized against the reality of Camp Como. Propaganda hadn't prepared him for an abundance so vast that civilians shared it with enemies. It hadn't explained how a nation supposedly weakened by comfort could produce endless bombers, tanks, ships, and supplies, overwhelming Germany's finest. It hadn't reconciled American moral corruption with children offering kindness without fear or hatred. The Geneva Convention explained the legal treatment, but not the spirit. Rules mandated adequate food, not chocolate bars. Sanitation, not hot showers twice daily. Nothing required civilians to bring cookies or children to share comics. This generosity stemmed from an abundance so profound, so deeply woven into American life, that sharing with enemies felt natural, not exceptional. Wilhelm finally understood why Germany was losing, not from lack of courage or engineering failure, but because they faced a nation that could afford generosity to prisoners, while simultaneously producing the overwhelming war machine. America wasn't weak, it was unimaginably strong. So strong it could be kind without fear, so abundant it felt modest to provision enemies. He would write to Greta, though explaining this new reality would be difficult. How could he describe children offering candy while their sons scavenged? How reconcile hot showers and flush toilets with propaganda promising righteous victory over a decadent foe? His weekly correspondence, though censored, would go out. He would write carefully, hoping she would read between the lines. His worldview, his understanding of the war, shattered the moment those American children approached the fence without fear, offering abundance while his own family suffered the destruction of Europe. Wilhelm Kuntz, a German prisoner of war, observes the stark contrast between American abundance and German scarcity, particularly through the lens of childhood. At the camp store, he watches an American corporal's son carelessly eat a 5-cent candy bar and drink a Coca-Cola, items that cost Wilhelm a full day's wages. He reflects on his own daughter, Greta, who owns only a handmade cloth doll, unlike the elaborate doll of the Morrison family's youngest daughter. This theme of stark disparity continues at Morrison Farms, where Wilhelm and other POWs work. Mrs. Morrison provides a lavish lunch of ham, cheese, fresh tomatoes and cold milk, a meal unimaginable to Wilhelm's family sharing turnip soup. Another POW, Hans Becker, notes his wife hasn't seen ham since 1942. The Morrison boy rides a new Schwinn bicycle to the fishing pond, a picture of carefree leisure, no responsibilities, no ration cards, no fear of bombers, a stark contrast to the childhoods of German children. The camp's recreation schedule further highlights these differences. Volleyball nets and baseball games are introduced, with American guards playing alongside prisoners. Sergeant Phillips' casual equality disturbs Wilhelm, whose military training dictates eternal enmity. The Americans provide all equipment for baseball, and younger prisoners quickly adapt, shouting English phrases. Even the American lieutenant shakes the hand of Gefreiter Otto Schmidt after he hits a home run. Saturday night film screenings become a torment for Wilhelm. Hollywood productions like Meet Me in St. Louis and National Velvet depict American families living in relentless abundance, with children enjoying varied outfits and owning horses, a luxury beyond most German families' total possessions. Going My Way shows a priest giving abundant Christmas gifts to orphans, charity far exceeding what Wilhelm's own son receives. These films cause barracks debates. Some dismiss them as propaganda, while younger prisoners, unfamiliar with pre-Hitler Germany, accept them as truth, Führerks, revealing a hunger beyond food. The camp library, stocked by the American Red Cross and local churches, exposes Wilhelm to more American concepts of childhood. Paul Werner translates titles of children's books like Tom Sawyer, Little Women, and The Secret Garden, explaining they are about common children who have adventures and shape their destinies. Werner notes, their childhood is protected. This contrasts sharply with Wilhelm's son Karl, who spends evenings in a cellar aware of recent deaths and fearing his father may never return. Reverend Thomas Clayton of Grace Baptist Church provides Mississippi newspapers, cigarettes and paper, answering prisoners' questions about America. Wilhelm learns that bread costs 5 cents a loaf, children attend school until at least 16, and most families own radios and automobiles. This information contradicts Wehrmacht briefings of American weakness. When Franz Gruber challenges Clayton, accusing him of mocking their starvation with excess, Clayton responds, "We show you truth. Your government told you we were your enemies. We feed you to prove they lied." Letters from home, arriving censored and often months old, reveal Margaret's veiled descriptions of life in Munich. Karl's height growth implies hunger, staying with her mother means their apartment was destroyed, and departed neighbours mean death or flight. Wilhelm, well-fed and comfortable in Mississippi, struggles with the guilt of his inability to answer truthfully. This cognitive dissonance manifests as physical pain. Wilhelm gains 12 pounds, his uniform fitting again. Sergeant Henderson explains the American Depression, drawing parallels between past American hard times and the present German suffering, yet contrasting America's aid programs with Germany's sacrifices. During a work detail repairing a school, teacher Miss Sarah Whitmore shows Wilhelm a classroom with 22 students, each with their own textbook, a sharp contrast to Karl's school, sharing 10 books among 60 children. Miss Whitmore's peppermint rewards for completed work further underscore America's valuing of education and childhood. Barracks conversations shift philosophically. Younger prisoners question National Socialism's superiority, while older veterans defend Germany's struggle against plutocratic excess. Wilhelm observes American children appearing healthy and confident, wondering if this stems from never knowing fear or hunger. Memorial Day brings a supervised parade experience where Wilhelm observes American children freely enjoying ice cream in safety, a given condition of American childhood. A father reflexively replaces a dropped ice cream cone, a 10-cent expense that could buy 2 days of black market flour in Munich. Germany's surrender on May 8, 1945 brings numbness and uncertainty. Wilhelm struggles to envision a future for his war-torn country and his family. He continues writing to Margaret, unable to explain his better conditions as a prisoner than his family's as civilians. June's Mississippi heat and renewed work at Morrison Farm further solidify Wilhelm's observations. The Morrison children enjoy summer vacation playing freely, while Mrs. Morrison's youngest daughter proudly distributes lemonade to the workers. This child, clean and happy, embodies the capitalist excess Wilhelm was taught to fight, yet she is loved and intact. Wilhelm's shift begins with acceptance. He attends English classes and Reverend Clayton's services, questioning American society's function. Clayton explains democracy, public education, and economic mobility, all driven by protecting children's futures. This contrasts with German ideology, where children serve the state. Relationships with guards soften into friendship. Sergeant Phillips shares his daughter's photo, expressing hope for Karl's future. This American optimism, born from never experiencing total destruction, deeply affects Wilhelm. In July, Wilhelm buys a red toy truck, a symbol of American abundance, to bring to Karl, promising a future for Karl in Germany, if not with American luxuries, then at least free from fear and hunger. The Wizard of Oz in late July resonates deeply. Dorothy's choice to return to her damaged home, despite colourful wonders, reflects Wilhelm's own understanding. Mississippi's abundance isn't his, but he has seen it. He cannot unsee the possibility of children living without fear, families having enough, and society protecting its vulnerable. He resolves to carry these memories as testimony. Another, better world is possible. August brings repatriation news. Wilhelm's name is on a preliminary list. He has gained weight, learned English, and questioned his beliefs. Karl, however, has lost his childhood to hunger and death. The scales will never balance. Wilhelm realizes Germany's leaders destroyed German children to fight a losing war, while America fed its enemy prisoners better than Germany fed its own families. And this bitter truth is the only honest thing he can bring home to Karl. Which nation valued children's futures and which consumed them? On May 8, 1945, the loudspeakers at Camp Como announced Germany's unconditional surrender. Feldwebel Wilhelm Kuntz, among 300 German prisoners, heard the declaration. There was no jubilation, only stunned silence, tears, or blank faces. Their 6-year war was over, and they had lost. Repatriation processing began, with schedules posted and new identity documents issued. Wilhelm learned he would depart from New Orleans in November 1945 with a convoy of 2,000 German POWs. The 6-month delay allowed him to ponder his return to Stuttgart. His wife, Gerda, and 8-year-old son, Klaus, had last written in March. The letters stopped in April, leaving their fate unknown. As autumn arrived in Mississippi, Kaiser Wilhelm observed American children at the camp fence trading baseball cards and chewing gum with guards. Their mothers shopped at the camp commissary. These children rode bicycles, their wagons filled with glass bottles for scrap drives, laughing and shouting. They wore sturdy shoes and thick coats as the weather turned. Wilhelm recalled a 1943 photo of Klaus in shoes with cardboard soles, his thin legs showing beneath 2 small shorts. This stark contrast between American abundance and his family's potential hardship weighed heavily on him before his departure. On November 18, 1945, Wilhelm boarded the USS General M.C. Meigs in New Orleans with 1,847 fellow German prisoners. The 14-day Atlantic voyage was through rough winter seas. Men were packed into holds previously used for American troops. The food, potatoes, bread, canned meat, coffee, was adequate but plain, yet more than many expected to find in Germany. Wilhelm shared a bunk with 3 other Feldwebels from various Southern American camps. They spoke little of their American experiences, perhaps fearing it would exacerbate the difficulties of returning home. On December 2, 1945, the ship docked at Bremerhaven, a city of shattered buildings and rubble. British occupying forces processed the returning prisoners, checking documents and conducting denazification interviews. Wilhelm spent 2 days answering questions about his military service and political affiliations, before receiving clearance to travel to Stuttgart in the American occupation zone. The train journey to Stuttgart lasted 26 hours due to damaged tracks and frequent inspection stops. Wilhelm saw farmlands devoid of livestock, of villages with extensive destruction, and cities reduced to hollow shells. When the train finally reached Stuttgart on December 5, 1946, Wilhelm found an unrecognizable city. Allied bombing had destroyed approximately 68% of the city centre. Rubble mountains lined the streets. Women and elderly men formed human chains, passing bricks to clear paths through the debris. The air was thick with the smell of dust and decay. Wilhelm discovered his apartment building in the Ostheim district was a pile of broken masonry. A neighbour informed him that Gerda and Klaus had survived the bombing and moved to temporary housing in the Hasenberg district. Wilhelm walked 4 miles through the ruined streets to find them in a single room of a partially damaged building, shared with 2 other families. Gerda, though 3 years older than when he last saw her, appeared to have aged a decade and weighed only about 40 kilograms. Klaus, now 9, was small for his age, with thin legs and a gaunt face. They had been subsisting on ration cards, providing 1,550 calories daily, less than half of what Wilhelm received as a prisoner in Mississippi. Their room had no heat except a small iron stove fueled by scavenged wood, and they owned only 3 blankets. Wilhelm revealed little about Camp Como. How could he describe American abundance while his family starved? Within a week he found work as a labourer with the Trümmerräumung, the American military authorities' rubble clearing operation. The work paid in Reichsmarks, which had almost no purchasing power, but workers received supplemental food rations. Wilhelm brought home extra bread and occasional tins of American surplus meat. Throughout 1946 and 1947, he worked 12-hour days, moving stone and brick, clearing destroyed buildings for reconstruction. During these years, the city removed an estimated 1.5 million cubic meters of rubble. In 1948, the Currency Reform and Marshall Plan initiated the first signs of recovery. Wilhelm became a foreman, supervising a crew of 20 men rebuilding apartment blocks in Prague-Friedhof. His Deutschmark wages could now buy food and clothing from shops that began restocking goods. Gerda found work in a textile factory. Klaus attended school in a repaired building, though he remained small and often ill due to the lasting effects of malnutrition. And Wilhelm never spoke to his son about the American children he had seen in Mississippi. Children who never knew hunger, who discarded food scraps that could have sustained a German family for days. By the mid-1950s, Stuttgart was rapidly rebuilding. Wilhelm's construction firm secured contracts for major projects, earning enough for him to move his family into a new apartment with 2 bedrooms and indoor plumbing. Klaus graduated from technical school and started an apprenticeship as a machinist. The German economic miracle was becoming a reality. In 1960, Klaus married and had a daughter, followed by a son in 1962. Wilhelm watched his grandchildren grow up well-fed, dressed in new clothes and playing with toys. They attended school with books and proper supplies, after playing in parks that had been rubble fields upon Wilhelm's return from America. By 1965, West Germany's standard of living neared what Wilhelm had observed in Mississippi 2 decades prior. Wilhelm Kuntz worked until his retirement in 1975 at 65. He never revisited the United States but read newspaper accounts of former German POWs who immigrated to America in the 1950s, settling in the regions where they had been imprisoned. He attended a Camp Como prisoners' reunion in Stuttgart in 1978, where 73 men shared memories. Wilhelm listened as others spoke of American kindness, fair treatment, and the shock of returning to Germany's devastation. He contributed little but felt a sense of camaraderie in his shared memories. The broader legacy of German POW experiences in America unfolded over decades. Most of the 371,000 German prisoners held in the US during World War II returned to Germany between 1945 and 1946. However, an estimated 5,000 to 10,000 German POWs immigrated back to America through various visa programs in the late 1940s and 1950s. Many settled in the agricultural regions where they had worked as prisoners, particularly in the South and Midwest, becoming farmers, business owners, and respected community members. Their experiences fostered personal American-German relations, creating networks of friendship and cultural exchange. The stark contrast between American civilian life and wartime Germany deeply influenced German POWs' understanding of American society. Many had been fed Nazi propaganda portraying America as morally and economically collapsed, weakened by racial diversity and democratic disorder. The reality they encountered contradicted this narrative. American children attended well-supplied schools, played organized sports, and lived free from the fear of bombing or starvation. American civilians supported the war effort with time and resources while maintaining a higher standard of living than peacetime Germany. This cognitive dissonance compelled many prisoners to re-evaluate their political beliefs and war-related assumptions. The treatment of German POWs in America later shaped international humanitarian policy. Adherence to Geneva Convention standards demonstrated that protecting prisoner rights enhanced moral authority rather than weakening military effectiveness. When the US established POW camps during the Korean War and subsequent conflicts, the World War II German POW program served as a model. Military ethicists have studied the program in courses on the laws of armed conflict, illustrating how humane treatment served both practical and principled objectives. Camp Como closed in 1946 and was demolished, with no museum or memorial marking its site in Mississippi. However, the Mississippi Department of Archives and History maintains an oral history collection, including interviews with American guards and local civilians who interacted with German POWs. Similar collections exist in academic archives across former camp states. Historians have published detailed studies, including Arnold Kramer's Nazi Prisoners of War in America, 1979, and Antonio Thompson's Men in German Uniform POWs in America during World War II, 2010, documenting daily camp life and cultural exchanges. The experience of German POWs in America also contributed to broader post-war reconciliation. Many former prisoners maintained correspondence with American guards or local families. Church groups in the 1950s facilitated pen pal programs connecting German communities with American towns that had hosted POW camps. These personal connections humanized former enemies and laid the groundwork for the strong German-American alliance that emerged during the Cold War. Sister city programs between German and American municipalities often originated from relationships forged through the POW program. Wilhelm Kuntz passed away in Stuttgart in November 1988 at 78. His son Klaus and daughter-in-law held a small funeral attended by family and former colleagues. Among Wilhelm's possessions, Klaus discovered a wooden box containing his father's POW identification documents, a photograph of Camp Como, and a small notebook with observations written in faded pencil. The entries described American children playing baseball, families picnicking, and stores filled with goods. The final entry, dated October 1945, simply stated, "They were never hungry, not one day." Klaus donated these materials to the Stuttgart City Archive, where they are available for research. Wilhelm's silent observations, shared by thousands of German POWs returning to a devastated homeland, helped shape a generation's understanding that the war was lost not just on battlefields, but due to the fundamental strength of American society, most evident in the well-fed, carefree faces of children who never experienced deprivation.